Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're enjoying Web Summit today. My name is Shrikesh Laxmidas. I'm the Deputy Editor-in-Chief of DECO. It's a leading business and finance news organization in Portugal. Welcome to this talk hosted by SIBS with Vinay Pranjivan, who is Senior Economist at DECO, the Portuguese Consumer Protection Association. Vinay is also a good friend of mine, so this is a real pleasure. Thank you, Vinay.
Thank you.
Thanks for taking part, buddy. We only have around 15 minutes, so let's rock and roll. Start with a question about what you see as the main changes and preferences that are shaping consumer behavior today, and more particular payment and digital services.
Well, thank you for the invitation. Well, what we see is a shift to the digital sphere of payments and also financial services provision and also contracting. And this was exponential. This really took off with the pandemic, where you had to be shut down, locked down at home, and of course the digital payments and digital purchasing of goods and services became a norm, a sort of a new normal. So in that sense we see a big shift, especially since 2021, in the adoption of digital payments and digital financial services contracting. Along with that, we also see some conservatism coming back. So in the recent year and a half, you also see a little bit of a movement going back to cash payments. So there's
Because of risk?
Not only because of risk, I think it's also because, and we see this as also a step back. It has been a too quick digitalization, which has not always been accompanied by understanding of how digital works. So we have to understand that also from the consumer. We have a behavior of going a bit more relaxed on the digitalization and adoption of digital payments.
So you're saying that people are stepping a little bit back from contactless, from biometric payments, mobile phones?
Well, contactless are fully adopted, I would say. So those who are actually favoring digital payments and card payments, they
that's
adopt
choice,
contactless. Yeah. That's fine. Biometrics, especially used on, let's say, fraud or authentication.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it's also whoever has those technology in their hands, they will adopt it. That's fine. But it's more about the day-to-day payments. In that space, we see a bit going back, but it's not about fear, it's not about risk, it's much more about comfort. So we have a dual path, which in our view, it makes sense, until we have a fully digital financial literacy for the users of payments.
So in your perspective, what have been the key factors of success, for example, of MBWay, which is a pioneering Portuguese system in the European context? We'll go more about Europe in a minute. What has been the key for this to become the preferred way of payment and to consumers and merchants, and also person-to-person transfers?
Well, first of all, I think MBWay has on its side, favoring it as fully integrated system for the Portuguese ecosystem. So we had all the main banks working together and creating originally Multibanco, and then later on MBWay.
They're also shareholders of the company, which helps.
Exactly. Yeah, but it came for the Portuguese consumer and payer. It became normal, the standard to have the brand Multibanco and also a payment system or a solution, MBWay. So that's number one. The second one was, it was initially, and it was provided free of charge, which makes a lot of impact on consumer choice, on payer's choice. And then of course, it comes with a number of options and solutions embedded in MBWay. So you make payments, you make P2P transfers, but you can also do additional services. And that became really comfortable, very user-friendly, and also when you have the app in your hand, it seems super seamless to do so. So in these three factors were, in our view, essential for the incredible adoption of consumers and Portuguese consumers of MBWay.
Portuguese consumers until now. Today there's been news of the first MBWay transfer to Spain. This is within the context of the European initiative. that's been announced here. It's a successful completion of the first cross-border transaction. So it's a significant step with other two European solutions in Spain and in Italy. How will this contribute to shaping the future of pan-European payments, in your view?
Well, this has to be the future. We live in a 27 member state context. We have the Eurozone, which is a space within the 27 member states. It doesn't make sense if we have a fragmented context of solutions. So being a Portuguese citizen, going frequently abroad for work and also for tourism, it only makes sense if I have sort of an integrated solution. So we really welcome, from the consumer perspective, such initiatives, and having neighbor Spain already included is also a plus for the Portuguese consumers. But we see this as a step towards what the future has to become, especially for the European space, which has a pan-European solution. Whether it comes in gradual steps, and this is one step, and if it becomes quicker to have all the member states together, it really makes sense.
It opens doors.
Yeah.
You talked a little bit about literacy. We've talked about this in previous events. What in your view, what role does digital education, financial and digital education now, play in the consumer protection, which is the area that you work in principally? And how can the different stakeholders contribute to this effort? And for example, what role does DECO play in this environment in Portugal?
Well, you have to combine financial literacy and digital literacy. So, in one hand, you have a low standard of financial literacy in Portugal. We rank fairly low in the different studies on financial literacy. Secondly, you have the digital literacy, and if you look data from the ECB on how digital skills, how many digital skills you have from the consumers in the European scale, it's fairly low. So we have a long way to go in that sense again. So the two combined, we are talking about digital payments, digital financial services. So we are combining financial and digital. And these two have to go a long way forward to become a sort of a safe space for everyone who's using it. And from the end user, from the consumer perspective, this is crucial. You have risks which are inherent to payments. You have risks which are inherent to digital. When you combine the two, you have fear. You have fraud, and the recent data on fraud is overwhelming, is terrifying. You have also the question of not understanding how these payment systems work. And while you don't understand, you have to eventually step back. And that's why I said initially...
You make mistakes and you step back, yeah.
That's why I said initially, you see a trend of people going back to cash because somehow they lack to understand how this is going so fast and they cannot keep track and keep up with the pace. How do the different stakeholders come into play? So from the financial services providers and the payment service providers especially, there has to be an effort on financial education. There has to be an effort on making everything what they do is transparent and also very clear on where the risks are, what they are doing to prevent and detect these
risks, for example.
Cyber risks,
attacks,
scams coming in. Phishing, I mean, you have different risks. You have phishing, you have spoofing, you have SMS, whatever type of scams or fraud. From the consumer side, on the consumer associations, we do a significant number of financial education programs. I myself provide training to consumers in person, online, trying to give them basis on financial education and also digital education. And when it comes to payments and services, what we try to focus on, especially 2 points: what you should do and what you shouldn't do. And this is crucial because when you look at fear, I mean, look at fraud and scams, some of the scams are from the social engineering side, which lead you to what you shouldn't do. If they take you to what you shouldn't do, if you are aware that you shouldn't do that, you will probably not fall into the trap and you'll probably refrain.
This question of literacy that also comes up quite often is inclusion. This morning I was listening to a panel here at the Web Summit with Portugal's Minister for Youth and Modernization, and she was talking about how Portugal is going to develop, is about to launch its national digital strategy, but in which has to have inclusion. You have young people using things like MBWay. You have elderly people who are digitally excluded, as we say, or info excluded, as we say in Portugal. How important is this for these systems to be fully integrated in society?
Well, then you also have to factor in another point, which is connectivity. So if you look at digital provision of services and payments, for example, if you live in a rural area which doesn't have real good Wi-Fi connection or even internet
blind
connection,
spots,
then what are you going to do?
Pay? Yeah.
How are you going to pay? Well, how do you actually become included? You may have a smartphone, but if you don't have connectivity, it doesn't work. The other point, of course, is understanding. You need to know what to do and what not to do. This is crucial again. So education on digital and financial. Also improve your network, your grid for connectivity. But also then, and this is crucial, you need to have providers of solutions, but you also have to have competition along with somewhat of a safeguarded environment. So when you look at the ecosystem, and again we talk about fraud, but you also have to understand people are excluded somehow also because from price, right? So you have a price exclusion. It's not only about digital exclusion or financial exclusion.
For that we have regulators.
Well, the regulators don't touch prices. They create the scenario for competition, but they don't actually interfere in prices. When they actually do, is in the end when consumer associations like mine actually complain and say, you have to actually intervene because it's not working anymore. So that's how the sphere is done.
We're talking about connectivity, we're in a technology summit. What are the most important ways that technologies like artificial intelligence are improving consumers' day-to-day lives in this field?
Yeah, well, you have opportunities and you have risks.
Yeah.
Especially in payments and financial services, the opportunities come, for example, on personalization. You have a tool that may help to have services and solutions which are tailor-made according to the data that you're willing to give to give away, right? So, and this goes with the risk. So consent. You need to make sure that consumers understand what the consent is and what they are consenting to, right? So there has to be opportunity and risk. A second opportunity, and this is very important, is fraud detection and fraud prevention. This is where AI should be used initially and straight away from the payment services providers and all the financial service providers, because you now have tools which were already there, but you can actually enhance them to actually prevent fraud and scams to be put in place in first hand. So that's, I think, that's the biggest opportunity that comes from AI.
Vinay, we've come exactly to the point of the time that was conceded to us for this interview. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for everybody in the audience as well. Thank you.